Hello students, in this lecture of automobile engineering, we will study about next component of transmission system, that is called as a gearbox. In this picture, you will see the gearbox diagram. In this diagram, you will see there is a input shaft and output shaft. Below to this, there is a counter shaft, and between this input and output shaft, various types of gears are mounted. And what is the purpose of gears? What is the purpose of gearbox? These are some of the things that we will see in this video. In this, we will study basically what is a function and what is the necessity of gearbox. What is meant by manual transmission? After that, how gearbox is classified, means classification of gearbox. After that, different gearbox that are mentioned in the syllabus. Out of this, one of the gearbox that we'll study, which is called as a constant mesh gearbox. So construction and working of constant mesh gearbox with its power flow diagram. After that, construction and working of synchromesh gearbox with its power flow diagram. So these two main important gearbox that we have to study. Starting with what is meant by gear. We know very well what is gear, that you have studied already at the second year. It is a device or mechanism that transmit force or power or change the direction of the force. So this is a gear that you will see in this picture. After that, there are certain types of gear. Out of that, number one type is simplest gear, that is called as a spur gear. So spur gear or a straight cut gears are the simplest type of gear. These gears can be meshed together correctly only if they are fitted to a parallel shaft. So here they are fitted to the parallel shaft. This way, this is a spur gear. After that, next is helical gear. Helical gears offer a refinement over spur gear. The leading edges of the teeth are not parallel to the axis of rotation, but are set at an angle. So here what is important point? The leading edges of the teeth are not parallel to the axis of rotation, but are set at an angle. So this way, this is a second type, and in this you will see there is a gear, helical gear. Third gear is bevel gear. A bevel gear is shaped like a right circular cone with most of its tip cut off. It changes the vertical motion to the horizontal motion. Next is double helical gear. Double helical gears are herringbone gears. So herringbone gear means double helical gear. You will see the picture of this in this slide, and it overcome the problem of axial thrust. After that, gear wheel or worm wheel. Worm gears resemble screws. A worm gear is usually meshed with a spur gear or a helical gear, which is called the gear wheel or worm wheel. Next is rack and pinion. A rack is a toothed bar or rod that can be thought of a sector gear with an infinitely large radius. Torque can be converted to linear force by meshing a rack with the pinion. The pinion turns, the rack moves in a straight line. So this way, these are certain types of the gears. So what is gearbox then? The gearbox is a mechanical device used to increase the output torque or to change the speed of the engine. So this way, what is the purpose? That is also given in this definition. It is used to increase the output torque or to change the speed of the engine. So next is, let us see the details. The shaft of the engine is connected to one end of the gearbox, and through the internal configuration of gears or of a gearbox, it provides a given output torque and speed determined by gear ratio. So gear ratio is playing a vital role. So here these are the pictures in which you will see the most basic type of gear is a spur gear, and which is used in gearbox, and second one is wider gears, and those that are cut for a smooth meshing are cut with the teeth of an angle. These are called as a helical gears. So these two types of gears are most widely used. One is called as a spur gear and second one is called as a helical gears. Because of the angle of cut, helical gear teeth have a much more gradual engagement, with each other, and they operate more smoothly and quietly than a spur gear. So this is a thing which is very important related to the helical type of gear. What is that? Helical gear teeth have much more gradual engagement with each other, and they operate more smoothly and quietly than the spur gear. After that, let us see the next point. Helical gears can transmit more torque because at any time more number of teeth are meshed. Gearboxes for cars and motorbikes almost always has helical gears. So this is very important. Gearboxes for cars and motorbikes almost always have helical gears. However, helical gears also exert undesirable axial thrust. To prevent axial thrust, double helical gears are used which cancel out the thrust. So double helical gears are also called as herringbone gears. So here you will see the typical example of gear ratio for a 5-speed manual gearbox. So gear, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, generally such type of gears that you will see in the automobiles. The ratio is given at the start. You will see 3.16 as to 1, 1.88 as to 1, 1.29 as to 1, 0.97 as to 1, 0.73 as to 1. So what is happening? RPM of the gearbox when the engine is at 3000 RPM. So if the engine is running at 3000 RPM, then first gear gives 947 RPM. So it is increasing, and at the fifth gear you will see the speed has been increased up to 4065 RPM. So this is the concept of gear ratio, and we can have an idea how gearbox works and how we can have the different speeds with the help of gearbox. Gearbox provides a speed and torque conversion because of the limitation of internal combustion engine. It also facilitates change of direction of output shaft for reversing. Automotive gearbox are used to reduce load on the engine by manipulating torque and speed. They have the option to select one of several different gear ratios. Once the engine has reached a number of revolutions per minute, it is advisable to increase the gear to reduce the engine RPM, to reduce wear on the engine, allow more control and greater speeds, better acceleration, better fuel economy. Most gearboxes are used to increase torque and reduce the speed of the output shaft. This produces mechanical advantage. So automatic gearbox is also have the provision to do the opposite, that is provide an increase in output shaft speed with the reduction of the torque. So this way the purpose is given in this, what is the purpose of the gearbox. Parts of the gearbox you will see here. In this there is a clutch shaft, main shaft, counter shaft, gears. These are some of the parts of the gearbox. So what is number one part? Clutch shaft, driving shaft and input shaft. A clutch shaft is a shaft that takes power from the engine to supply another shaft. After that next is counter shaft. The counter shaft is a shaft that connects directly to the clutch shaft. It has a gear which connects it to the clutch shaft as well as the main shaft. Third is main shaft or output shaft. The main output shaft that rotates at different speeds and also provides the necessary torque to the vehicle. So this way these are the three important components. After that there is a bearing. The bearings are required to support the rotating part and reduce friction. Next part is gears. As already we have seen this, gears are used for transmitting the power from one shaft to another shaft. Gear selector fork. So gear selectors are simple devices that use a lever that selects gears to engage in disengage mechanisms. Let us see what is the classification of gearbox. Number one is manual transmission. In that we will have three types: sliding mesh gearbox, constant mesh gearbox and synchro mesh gearbox. Second type is epicyclic gearbox, and third automatic transmission. In that we are having two categories: hydromatic gearbox and torque converter gearbox. So first is here you will see sliding mesh gearbox. Sliding mesh gearbox, there are three gears, 1, 6, 5. So 1, 6 and 5. These are the gears attached on the main shaft, and 4 gears, 2, 3, 4, 7. These are on the layoff shaft. Second type is constant mesh gearbox. In this all gears are constantly in mesh and dog clutches are used for engaging and disengaging the gears. So here you will see there are dog clutches, D1 and D2 on the main shaft. So dog clutches D1 and D2 are mounted on the main shaft. And third one is nothing but synchro mesh gearbox. What is happening here? Synchro mesh gearbox uses synchronizer instead of sliding dog clutches to affect the ratio change. The synchro mesh gearbox is similar to the constant mesh gearbox, but the gear but the synchronous gearbox is provided with synchronizer, the device by which the two gears to be engaged are first brought into frictional contact, which equalizes their speed. Afterward, they are engaged smoothly. So these three gearbox that we have seen in short, but in detail, we will study it into the next lecture. Thank you very much.